Welcome to the Consultancy Edge. I'm your host, Matt Hodkinson, and this week I'm joined by sales powerhouse John Barrows, CEO of JB Sales, advisor to Salesforce, LinkedIn, and Amazon, and creator of the Make It Happen Mondays podcast. John's journey spans from pounding out 400 cold calls a week to building a multi-million-dollar sales training empire. In this episode, we dig into the real reason most founder-led sales teams stall, the brutal lessons of losing $6 million in revenue overnight, and why authenticity, not AI, will be your ultimate sales advantage. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Consultancy Edge. John Barrows, how are you today, sir?
Fantastic, Matt. How are you doing?
Yes, very well, thank you. I've been waiting for this for a long, long time, and I know a lot of our listeners are going to be very interested to talk sales because it's top of mind forever, but it seems even more so in recent times. Before we dive into things, just tell us a bit about yourself, a bit about what you do at JB Sales, and how you've come to this point.
Yeah, so I'll try to give you the brief version here. Grew up here in Boston, went down to University of Maryland, drank my way through 4 years of college, got my degree in marketing because I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. Got into kind of sales, but not. It was DeWalt Power Tools is more event marketing, so driving around and giving away free tools in a big old Dodge Ram pickup truck, which was pretty cool. Then I was at Xerox, so that's really where I learned how to sell. I got my sales education there. Xerox, especially back then, was very, very well known for their world-class training. Did that for a year, and by the way, I sold copiers to the government, so about as commoditized as you can get. Then I left that and found my real passion in startups, and because I just didn't like the corporate world, something about it wasn't right to me. And so I got into my buddy started an outsourced IT services firm, self-funded. We serviced SMB, so companies under 200 employees. We managed their infrastructure. I was the VP of sales and marketing at the ripe old age of 23, which tells you that titles don't matter at all. And I didn't know what I was doing, so I took every training, Miller, Hyman, Taz, Spin, you name it, I was taking it. And I found this group called Basho, which was just this training here in Boston that I loved. And my mentor, Jeff Hoffman, is still my mentor to this day. And it was because it was like super tactical. It wasn't this big long theory or process I had to follow. Here's how to send an email, send an email. Here's how to make a phone call, make a phone call. So I loved it, used it, grew Thrive, fastest growing company in Massachusetts for a few years in a row. Got us to 85 employees and 12 million in revenue, and then sold to Staples. Staples came and bought us. Spent about a year going through that integration. Come to find out, apparently I'm not a corporate guy. I don't have much of a filter, and I really don't like playing politics. So after a little while, Staples offered me another position. They fired me, and I was looking for a job. Basho came knocking, said, "John, you want to be a trainer?" I was like, "Nope." And they're like, "Why not?" I'm like, "I don't like trainers." I'm like, "Why not?" I'm like, "Well, most trainers, sales trainers I had come across were either failed sales professionals or professional presenters."
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to be one of those guys. And they were like, "Don't worry, you have to use these techniques to sell so you can trade." So it was a whole practice what you preach thing. Loved it. Joined one of the top reps there. Long story short, after that, they screwed it all up and I took it over. So been on my own now for about 15 years, working with companies like Salesforce, LinkedIn, Box, Amazon, Google, and any company who's trying to level up. Mostly sales organizations, but I am owner operator here. So I've gone from building my business up to about 6 million and about 20 employees, and then got kicked right in the teeth in early 2023 because all my companies are SaaS and tech. And if you remember anything about Silicon Valley Bank, well, every single one of my clients was with Silicon Valley Bank. And because I'm not an MRR company, I'm a professional services company, my revenue went from 6 million to zero in 2 months. And had to rebuild, restructure. Now I'm just on my own with my COO, Megan, and a lot happier for it. So it's been a long, fun journey, sometimes fun, but ups and downs along the way. But I'm still here, still kicking. So must be doing something right.
Let's dig a little bit into that, John. I mean, that part of your story from going from 6 million to zero, I think one of the things that's pummeled into a lot of our listeners as consultancy leaders
Mhm.
is that we have to be resilient. I mean, we've
Mhm.
hit hurdle after hurdle, seemingly over the last few years. I think the
Mhm.
one that people are really struggling with at the moment is AI and how that's
Of
going to
course.
come and feature. And
Yep.
I know that I will get your thoughts on that because I watched a video of
Mhm.
yours today about AI. But I just wonder, what did that experience teach you about resilience? And what is it all about? Sales cures all ills, that famous mantra that we all buy into.
Yeah. I mean, to be direct, I wouldn't be here if I didn't know how to sell. So for me, I've always been like sales is my passion, right? Like that's why when people ask me, what do you do? I'm like, I'm not a trainer. I'm a sales rep who happens to train. I sell every day. I prospect. I do all my own. This is why like when anybody ever tells me that they're too busy to do prospecting or too busy, I'm like, okay, cool. And I open up my calendar and I show them and I'm like, let me ask you, is your calendar busier than that? Because I train Fortune 500, I train a bunch of other companies. I do all that training. I do all my own prospecting, do all my discovery, do all my negotiations. I do podcasts. I do my social brand. I manage my, everything about my strategy and everything else. But I still find ways to put prospecting, especially prospecting, into my routine every single day. And I've always sold. That's because my passion. When unfortunately I got pretty lazy, just like all of us did in the glory days, especially. I deem 2010 to 2008, 22 as the golden age of sales because we were able to get away with blasting out template emails, setting up discovery calls with anybody with a pulse, asking dumbass bant questions, and then rolling through generic demos and offering a discount. Like that was sales. It was basically order taking for the past 10 years. And it got everybody to believe that they were way better than they actually were, including myself, by the way. And I realized with my business, I never built a business. I didn't build a business like a company because I wanted to. I built a business in a company because I could. And that's a different, like I just want the reason I got into doing this and I evolved into it. It wasn't a conscious choice. I just kept making opportunistic choices along the way. The main reason I got into it is I didn't want a boss. Like I just didn't want somebody else telling me what to do. But all of a sudden I became a boss and my company was my boss, which is like the worst nightmare of any entrepreneur is that when you're working for a company that is yours. So now you get none of the benefits of what a normal company brings to the table, like all the stress off of your plate. And you have to now do all of this shit and you're working for yourself, but it's almost like you're not. You know what I mean? Because you're working for this business. And that's for me was like the wake up call was holy shit. I built this because I could, not because I wanted to. And when things were falling apart, I tried to motivate my team without panic but I mean I was wide open. I was like, here's the P&L team. Like this isn't if you might or may not have a job here. Like here's the date that we run out of money. So if you can't sell, none of us are going to be here, right? And I've always said I'm a decent leader. I'm an all right coach. I'm a shitty manager. Like I suck at managing, and because I'm just hey, I'm going to give you tools. I'm going to give you resources. And I'm going to pay you really, really well, and I'm just going to expect you to do your fucking job, right? And unfortunately, a good economy hides a lot of warts. And so when I realized that I had a group of people that didn't have the, I guess, abilities or brand or drive that I did, I was like, holy shit, how do I deal with this? And I put my sales hat back on and went to work, like went to work. You could look this back up. If you look back in early, I think it was February of 2023, or no, April. It was the end of the quarter. I wrote a post on LinkedIn. I got 49 meetings in February, 70 meetings in Q1. And it's because I went back and I leaned on my brand. I leaned on my network. I asked help, cashed in some favors, made a ton of cold calls, sent emails, hit LinkedIn. And when my team came back, I was like looking at the results. I'm like, look at these results. And they're like, well, yeah, that's because you're John Barrows. I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, that to a certain degree, I built my brand this way. And that's why, so I can leverage it when I need to. I go, but can we just look at the pure activity level here? Like, see these bars here? Like this is yours, that's adorable. Look at this bar. Like that doesn't take talent, that doesn't take brand, that just takes effort. And that's when I realized I'm like, why am I killing myself for people who aren't willing to I mean, look, and I'm not trying to disparage any like I had great employees. I love my employees. But it was my fault for not focusing on the details, not holding people accountable, and putting us in a position where I didn't develop them. You know what I mean? It was my fault for not developing them. I just kind of let them go and just assumed. And so when the shit hit the fan, I was like, oh my God, I failed miserably here as a leader.
Mm.
And so that's why I had to get back on my horse and kind of show what I should have been showing them forever, right? And so I just, I sales, yes. I mean, does it cure all problems? No, but it cures a lot of them. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, if I didn't know how to do that, if I didn't know how to sell, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you right now, Matt. I wouldn't be having this conversation. And people think, and I'll add one more on my rant here. I wrote a post a while back called the Founder's Dilemma. And I think this will hopefully resonate with your team, with the people that are listening here. It's when usually an engineering founder, right? They start a company. And you and I think both know that sales is the transfer of enthusiasm. Somebody told me that early in my career, and I genuinely believe it. That if you believe that strongly in what you sell, it's just a transfer of enthusiasm, right? So that's why I say everybody's in sales. But you'll take an engineer and they'll be like, no, absolutely not. I'm not in sales. I hate it, whatever it is. But then you ask them to like describe something that they just created or built, and you'll see them light up like a Christmas tree. Like, oh, I did this. And it's like, shit, man, if I needed that, I want it, right? So sales, it was, the founder's dilemma. They start a business with something they created, right? And they're really good at consultants, whatever it is. Then they go out and talk to some friends, families, and fools, right? They talk to a friendly audience when they first go out there. And because they're so passionate about what they do and they're talking to a friendly audience, they usually get great feedback and they might even get a couple of customers. And then they just say, oh, well, sales is easy. Like anybody could do this. Literally, my first CTO at Thrive, we walked out. I knew nothing about technology. First month I was there, we went on a sales call together. He walked out of the room with the client and me after the meeting, looked at me as we were walking to the car, and he said, man, everybody needs what we have. I don't understand why sales is so hard. I was just like, you fuck, are you kidding me right now? Like, do you understand that you just saw the easiest part of the entire sales process, the meeting? Like everything that comes up to that point and everything after that. That's why I get paid to do what I do, right? So they friends, families, and fools. Then they hire a VP of sales because they think a VP of sales is going to come in and just take that burden off of their plate. And then because the VP of sales doesn't have the passion or doesn't need a VP, pick a title, right? Doesn't have the passion, doesn't have the background, doesn't have any structure to it. They go out there and they try to sell this stuff and it fails miserably. And the engineer then goes, I knew sales was brutal. Like, fuck that, man. Let's go marketing, right? And then they market and then marketing gets them to a level and then they got it. So they look at sales as a necessary evil. They don't look at it as the strategic part of their organization. And to me, I'm sorry. I actually coach sales reps. Ask when you're looking for a job, ask if the founder is a sales business founder or a technical founder. And quite frankly, I recommend reps run away from technical founders because unless sales or the technical founder who's a unicorn out there that thinks that does believe that sales is solves all problems, that okay, cool. But otherwise, go for a business founder because the engineer is always going to think that the features and functions and whatever and the service is better. And I'm sorry, I've seen very few companies fail because it's product market fit. And I've seen a shitload of companies fail because they can't sell.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. There's so much to unpack there, John, but chief among them is something I see with a lot of our clients in the consulting space is they are technical experts. When they're in the conversation, they don't have a problem selling because, again, that enthusiasm comes over.
Yeah.
I want to talk about what happens before that because a lot of our clients, again, before we work with them, they say, yeah, when we're in the conversation, our conversion rates are great for those
Sure.
very reasons we've just cited. It's what comes before. They're not in the conversation often enough. And I know that you come from a background where you were doing 400 cold calls a week and it sounds like you're still doing a great deal of that. What is it, do you think, that those founder-led businesses can be doing to prospect better, to get into the conversation? Is it a marketing job? Is it a prospecting job? Is it sales? What works for you?
Well, A is take my training. No, I'm just, but well, no, but in all, like I've built my career. I have a couple of different programs, right? Filling the funnel and driving to close. And the filling the funnel program is 80% of what I train. And it's to do exactly that. And so here, without if you want to buy my training, great, but I'll tell you exactly how to do it. I think a founder should always at least be out there engaging with people, trying different things, building their personal brand, just to stay in touch with what's happening out there and what's working and what's not. Because you can't really, I mean, yes, you can hire an outsourced agency, you can do all this other stuff, but none of that's authentic, none of that's you. And I do want to put a caveat to this. It depends on how fast you want to grow, obviously. A lot of consulting agencies, like what I learned early at Thrive specifically, was there's really only two types of businesses. There's growth businesses and there's lifestyle businesses. And as a founder, you have to make that decision because you can't be both. If you're a growth, then you need to take every dollar of profit, stuff it back into the company, and go as fast as you possibly can with the potential outcome that you're looking for, whatever that is. But if you're a lifestyle company, then it's about maximizing profits, right? So you don't have to mass produce, you don't have to blast out, marketing and all this other stuff. You just need to be hyper focused on your ideal customer profile. And so this is the thing that I think most companies get wrong. So I'm going to defer down to the I don't want to grow a million. Like if you're a software company, good for you. I can help you turn your engine on and all this other stuff. But if you're a founder and a consultant, my opinion is first and foremost starts with understanding like when I say the nuances of your ideal customer profile, I mean the nuances of your customer profile. I don't mean just running a list on Zoom info, doing company size, number of employees in industry. I mean like what stage of the business are they at? What's their department that you work with? What's the structure there? What technologies do they use internally that you can align with? What are their values? What are those type of things.
Yeah.
And once you get really tight, I mean really tight, because the challenge with a lot of consultants is they take bad revenue. They'll take money from anybody who's willing to give it to them, right? And at first, yeah, like I've been there. You know what I mean? Like I'm struggling. Holy shit, you're gonna give me 30 grand to do something? Fuck yes, man. Whatever it is, I'm doing it, right? But the problem with that is that it takes you away from doing the great business that you should be doing for the right client.
Mm.
So that's why I don't recommend anybody get into startups, coaching, any of that stuff until they have at least 6 months of runway of cash in the bank. Because otherwise you're going to take shitty money and it's gonna bleed you dry. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you get super tight on that ideal customer profile and then you go find companies that fit that profile and then you create a list of those companies in something like LinkedIn Sales Navigator so you can track those companies and then you find like the personas within those companies that you have the highest connect rate with or the highest value you can bring to them, then you start to track those people so you're getting alerted on when things are happening in those businesses, right? Because we all, I think, let marketing do the, hey, we're the leading provider of, and look at all this wonderful shit and blah, 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 right? Like too many people in sales, I think, are just plain marketers, quite frankly. Like they're not thoughtful with their approach. They're just, hey, look at how great we are. Here's the 15 bullet points of what we do. Do you want it? It's like, no. Because if you're not speaking to me these days, like directly to me, and you're not showing that this is like a thoughtful, personalized, like, wow, I can help your business. If you're not adding value to me, piss off. Like you're going to my spam filter. But if you're really thoughtful and you get the system set up where you can be alerted based on intent data, based on trigger events and all those type of things, and I can reach out to you and say, hey Matt, I've been following you for a while now, and I love what you're doing on the podcast here. And one of the things I wanted to, you had a recent conversation with John Barrows about this, and really struck me, man. I would love to see if I could talk to you because a lot of our solutions actually align with something that you talked about, and I was wondering if you'd just be open to a brief conversation about that, like that approach there.
Yeah.
And then, hey, by the way, after this, hey Matt, here's a case study or a PDF of either a report or something that I thought you might find some insight into. Some of the key metrics here are X, Y, Z, right? If you do that, right, and then just maybe making a cold call and leaving a voicemail, not to cold call with a script, but to be like, hey Matt, I just sent you an email today about your conversation with John, and it was about this. I thought I'd love to. Could you just take a look at that email? Let me know if you'd be open to a brief conversation, right? The genuine factor here, right? When I did have my team, I would have them profile their top 25 list, okay? All on the demographic stuff and the nuanced things. But before I allowed them to prospect into those top 25 accounts, I asked them, they needed to go and look at those accounts and come back and tell me why they personally wanted to work with that company. What was it about them? Was it you really liked their product? You thought it was really badass. You loved their values or their leadership, or it was just really. What was it What is it that makes the connection that you, outside of, yeah, we can sell you sales training, you want to work with that company? Because once you make that connection of like, man, I really want to work with this company, your messaging comes across so much more genuine. It comes across as so much, so and it stands out because
And you're going to
everybody's
find that
using AI.
enthusiasm, right, John, as well?
Yeah. And the challenge right now is everybody's using AI. And it sounds super personalized, but I tell you right now, and I'm fairly confident that even into the not so distant future, I get tons of AI driven emails that are super personalized. But the only thing I could say is that they just don't have a soul.
Yeah.
There's something missing about them. And as a human, I can pick up on it. And when I pick up on, like, here's my stance on AI. I know we'll get into it, but if I know it's AI, if I know it's AI generated, if I know it's like, and it calls it out, hey, I'm AI generated, but I created this blog, I created this post, I created this email, I'm actually quite interested. I'm like, okay, that's really cool. Holy shit, it actually did a great job. But if you use AI to pretend like you're human, and I sniff of it. And literally, if I sniff that it's AI, I discredit everything that's in the email. I discredit everything that's on the post because I'm like, yep, you tried to dupe me, right? So that's why I think it's your authenticity is by far, in my opinion, going to be the superpower moving forward
Yeah.
because they can't replicate you personally. That's why I encourage people to screw up. I suck at typing, and I used to have a complex about that, right? I'd be like, fuck, man. Oh, and I would have to go back and recapitalize every word. And now I don't. Now I'm just like, nope, that's me. Because guess what? Our power as humans is we're not perfect,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So there's a
Yeah, I
lot
love
to
that.
it. There's a lot to unpack, but there's a consistency to it. It's a routine that you can put in place, and it doesn't have to. And I just want people who are listening to this not to think about sales. Well, not to think about prospecting as making a shitload of cold calls, generic elevator pitches, boiler room shit. I also don't want them to think about sales as the perception that it has.
Mm.
Sales is about helping people solve problems or helping them achieve goals. That's it.
Yeah.
If you're trying to convince someone in sales, I think you're doing it wrong.
Mm. Yeah, that's great. Great advice, John. I did want to pick up on the use of the phone. And
Okay.
so we've talked about cold calls quite a lot.
Yep.
I love the trigger-led approach, by the way, just having that reason, something to reference, in this case, the email and the
Yep.
case study and everything that goes with it. Still, I feel like there are so many people out there that almost have forgotten that the telephone exists
Yeah.
or that it's for anything other than texting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what is it, do you think, that's so powerful about the telephone for the voice call?
Mm.
And how can you get people through that inertia, I guess, of just, fearing the use of the phone when it
Yeah.
comes to their sales process?
Well, I think there's a difference between like an SDR, BDR making cold calls and a founder, right? Making cold calls. I think if I was a founder, I don't make a ton of phone calls. I don't make a ton of cold calls, but I do use them strategically as part of an overall contact strategy, right? Because different people like communicating in different ways. I don't know if you've studied anything on neuro-linguistic programming, but there's a book on selling with NLP, The Unfair Advantage, and it talks about visual, auditory, and kinesthetics and how we all communicate in different ways, right? So, for instance, if you send 5 emails to an auditory, your chances of them responding drop. If you make 5 phone calls to a kinesthetic, your chances of them responding drop. So you have to kind of mix it up. And so with that, it's about this is where I think we also as sales reps need to be mini marketers because I don't look at phone as a sales function in a lot of ways right now. I look at it as an impression point. So and we know marketing, it's all about these positive impression points, right? Like so eventually it builds this familiarity with and a trust with whatever the brand is or whoever it is. And they all have to play together. So that's why I'll call and I'll leave a voicemail, not because I'm expecting a call back, but because that voicemail, if they read it on their phone, for instance, which a lot of them can do now, they might, as they're sitting there on the train or something like that, read through it and be like, oh yeah, I remember he emailed me a couple days ago. And then let me go look at that email. And yeah, that's right. Let me go look at his LinkedIn profile. And okay, you know what? Let me go to his website. Oh, now I'm going to come inbound. So that's the way I personally look at it. Now, if you want to get over a fear of actually making calls, you either going back to the give a shit factor and like caring about that, right? And finding a legitimate trigger that you can say, "Hey, Matt, the reason I'm calling, man, is I noticed you recently did this, and it struck me because I'd love to have a conversation with you because a ton of our clients have gone through that, and I really would just like to see if you'd be open to a brief conversation, right? When you have a genuine reason, you can have a lot more confidence, right? If you're trying to pitch something, if you're trying to sell, if you're trying to help, good. If you're trying to pitch some shit, yeah, you should have anxiety about it, right? Then that's like one off. But if you want to try to kind of get the groove going here, I think sprinkling phone calls throughout the day is a drastic waste of time. I really do. I think, doing a little bit of research, making a phone call, sending an email, doing some research, like there's no efficiency to that. You can't learn anything that way.
Mm.
So what do companies do? They do power hours, right? So that, all right, for an hour, I'm going to hammer the phones. But unfortunately, a lot of people, when they do power hours, they just bring their list. And I don't know about you. I'm not smart enough to call a VP of sales in the SaaS industry, a director of IT in the manufacturing, a CMO in the retail, and have relevant, good conversations with each of them. I'm just not that bright. Okay. But if I get a list of like all VPs of sales in the SaaS industry,
Mm.
ideally like industry and title, because like VPs of sales in SaaS have different priorities than VPs of sales in retail, right? So now I can come up with a message that is relevant to VPs of sales and SaaS, questions that are relevant to VPs of sales and SaaS, and maybe even a case study. And then I can go to work, by the way, and say the same thing over and over and over again. Hey, we work with VPs of sales. We show them how to do that. Reason for my call. And you could test it against another one. Because look, the holy grail of prospecting is personalization and relevance. If you can be personalized and relevant, you win the day, right? But if you force me to choose between personalization or relevance, I'm going relevance all day long.
Yeah.
Just because I went to the University of Maryland does not buy you any points these days. You know what I mean? But yet I still get emails, hey, John, I see you went to U Maryland, go Terps. And then it hard cuts to some stupid value proposition that I would have absolutely no interest in talking about. I'd much rather have you say, hey, John, in an email, as a CEO of a sales training organization, how have you integrated AI into your coaching program so you can create a recurring revenue stream and value for your customers after you do the training? Reason I ask is because our AI platform gives coach a white label, da da da. Thought it'd be worth a conversation. You could send that out to 50 CEOs of sales training organizations, and it would still be good.
Yeah.
So,
So high relevance. I love that. But the marrying of personalization and relevance
yeah,
is that superpower, right? You mentioned earlier, John, I did want to pick up on this. Selling in a good market, in a good economy, that's relatively easy.
yeah,
Anybody should be able to do that, right? I think in the consulting sector, it's fair to say that we've had a rather sustained period of sort of low activity.
yeah.
Is it about activity? Is it about ramping up the effort? What are some of the ways to kind of account for those dips in performance that are largely or perceptibly outside of our control?
Well, so short answer is yeah. I'm sorry. Like I have 12 personal guidelines to success, and the first one is work smart and hard.
Mm.
Everybody's like, oh, work smarter. Shut up. You have to work your fucking ass off to be successful. Like when people ask John, what's the secret to success? Work your ass off. I'm not that smart. I'm not that bright. I didn't fail school. Like I got my 3 point whatever, but I'm like, I don't test well. I have a shitty memory, right? But I know I can outwork almost anybody. And so for me, I think a lot of people need to look at themselves in the mirror and say, am I really working as hard as I could be right now? Or do I sit at home, watching 2 hours of Netflix, binging this? Do I, so first of all, I think we all need to look in the mirror here because I think work ethic is something that I am drastically concerned with as us as a society here. I think we've gotten soft. Actually, I know we've gotten soft. Not all of us, obviously, but I think that's step one is look yourself in the mirror and say, am I do I even want to put in the level of work that is probably necessary to be able to do this? But then it's about learning from that work. So here's my tip that I give to, somebody asked me, John, if you could go back and tell your 22-year-old self something, what would it be? My number one answer to that was A/B split test everything you do.
Mm.
And when I say that, we're all doing the activities anyways, but we're not learning from them. We're just doing them. So, for instance, you brought it up. I used to make 400 dials a week. $400. And I did that for 5 years of my career. And that was when I didn't know what I didn't know. I was just brute force, and it was purely a numbers game for me. I still remember this to this day. Literally still remember my cold call pitch from 20 years ago. Ready? Here goes. And by the way, for people listening to this, I am not, Matt, you can confirm here. I'm going to take off my glasses. This is not like an AI trick. I have my eyes closed. Ready? This is the voicemail that I left 399 times a week for 5 years. It went something like this. Actually, I'm sorry. It went exactly like this. Hi, this is John Barrows with Thrive Networks. We do outsourced IT support for small to mid-sized companies in the Boston area. We take a really unique approach to manage your IT infrastructure by combining the best of what people and technology have to offer. We tie our network operations center and our managed services to your environment so we can take care of all the small things on a proactive basis. So when the engineers come on site, they can take care of the high-level, more strategic initiatives to help drive your business forward. Love to talk to you about your IT support needs. If you could call me back at 617-529-7271. This is John Barrows with Thrive Networks, 617-529-7271. And ooh, was I proud of that. I would leave that voicemail. I'd be like, what's up? Nailed it again. But when I realized I wasn't getting very many callbacks. So now that I know what I know, instead of making 400 generic cold calls, first of all, I would still make 400 cold calls just to figure it out. But instead of making 400 generic cold calls, I'd come up with 4 different approaches to the same persona. And I would call 100, 100, 100, 100. And I would just see which one yield was the highest converting one. And then I would lean in on that, and then I would test it again. If I had one email that I could send to 50 people because they all fit a similar profile, I'd break it up into 25, 25 and tweak the subject line to see which one got me an open rate better. Cold calling, there's ways like we use the AIDA structure of cold calling, like attention, interest, desire, action. Attention, like you're not selling anything on a cold call. Well, you're not selling your product or solution. You're selling time. You're selling the next step, right? So the first 5 seconds legitimately dictates the next, whether you earn the right for another 30 seconds to tell them what you do. And then in that 30 seconds, that earns you the right to another couple of minutes where maybe you can ask some questions. And that 2 minutes earns you a discovery call, right? So if we think of attention, there's about 50 different ways you can introduce yourself on a cold call. Go into ChatGPT and say, give me 10 different ways for me to introduce myself on a cold call with the goal of keeping the person on the phone. Tell me what the technique is and, how would you say it? You pick a couple that you like. You're like, ooh, I like that one. And I like that one. Cool. Now you go after, you rip a list of 50 accounts that all fit the similar profile. You have the same message, right? We show VPs of sales how to, but you tweak the intro. So you make calls. Hey, can I get 30 seconds to tell you why I'm calling before you hang up on me? We're in sprint. Hey, and then in the afternoon, hey, this is John Barrows of JP Sales. Are you familiar with us? Right? And then you just track to see which one got you in better. Last one, objection handling. Write down an objection that you are getting smoked on right now. Like just can't figure out how to deal with it. Okay, write it down. And I mean word for word. What do they say? Go into ChatGPT and say, give me 10 different ways of handling this objection. Pick the two that you like. The next 10 times that objection comes up, deal with it this way. The next 10 times, deal with it that way. So what I'm explaining here should really resonate specifically with engineering founders because I fundamentally believe that sales should be more of a science than an art. The science lays the foundation for the art form to be that much more effective. The structure, the process that we put in place allows our art to thrive. But that structure, that's the most important part because you can replicate that structure. You can bring people in and fill them in that structure. You can hand that structure off to a VP of sales and say, this is what I figured out about my business. Now you have a foundation to build from.
I think that A/B test approach is absolutely gold, John. I feel like people, when they hit on something that they feel is delivering enough for them, that they just stick with it. And if it's not delivering, they ditch it. And without really going into that iterative process, a continuous improvement and hypothesizing around what's going to work. You did mention, and I'm fully on board with you on this as well. If I get a sniff that AI is reaching out to me, that there's no human interaction going on, that turns me off. But I did, as I mentioned earlier, I watched your recent video on how AI has augmented the sales process that you followed for over a decade. Now, with the rise of AI in sales and sales processes, how do you see the role of the salesperson evolving? What skills do you think will be most critical in the next decade and beyond?
Yeah, this is a tough one, man. Because I don't know. Things are moving so fast right now. The question that I'm exploring right now on my podcast with people is, where do the fundamentals come from? Because if you think of, sales, I'll pick any profession. The entry level component of any profession right now, can be done far better with AI than entry level reps. So, well, let's pick on lawyers for here for a second. Lawyer goes to school, they pass the bar. The first 5 to 10, first up to 5 years of their career is just bullshit case, looking through case precedents, all that stuff like grunt work, right? Now, hey, I'm a big boy lawyer. ChatGPT, could you scan the Library of Congress here and tell me the top 10 cases that are most relevant to the one that I have, and tell me how. Oh, okay. So my sales, all like when I was growing up, I didn't have, I graduated in 98, right? So email was kind of a thing, but phone was still it, door to door. I'm writing notes down. I'm taking pictures with my Polaroid camera and transcribing these things and all this shit work that I quite frankly didn't love. But all that allowed me to be the sales professional that I am right now, to be able to have this conversation without a script, to be able to go off and really understand people's needs and have the grit to be able to get through this, right? My fear right now is because all that is now being done by AI, A, where the fundamentals come from, B, what are the fundamentals anymore? And I don't know the answer to that question. I think, quite frankly, I think all IQ stuff is over. It's already smarter than us. It's already better than us in that regard. So everything is EQ. Everything is EQ. Learning how to read people, learning how to have conversations, learning how to look people in the eye. And the problem is that we have a whole generation of kids that have grown up in this format, in this box that we're looking at right now. And that's why everything feels so transactional. Because I used to be able to go into your office, right? Sit down with you, kind of look around, do the whole, hey, you're a fisherman, right? That type of thing. And there was time there was time. It was harder for you to, quite frankly, physically kick me out of your office, right? Well, now it's sorry, man. I got a hard stop at 10 o'clock. Click. See you later. So I fear right now. I think we're in an 80-20. Quite frankly, I think we're in a Pareto's rule here, where 20% of sales professionals, lawyers, and everybody are gonna be assassins. They're gonna add so much value. They're gonna be able to bring so much, revenue, all that stuff. But I think, quite frankly, 80% of us are gonna get smoked. And so I'm just trying to figure out how to get into that, make sure I'm staying in that 20%. Because I think the truly, if you really want to ask where I think the real future is from a sales standpoint, it's more of a customer service oriented, educated person sitting behind a screen with AB, account-based marketing and AI feeding not just, okay, so I don't walk in the door every morning and go, okay, who should I be talking to today? Let me do some research. No, no, no. We're going to get John. You need to call Matt. And because Matt just did this, he posted this, and his company did that, da, 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 da. And by the way, you should call him because he likes phone over email. And here's a couple of bullet points that you can use to reference when you're talking to him, and then automatically make the phone call. It'll record the conversation, dump it into CRM, and I'm up for the next. And so it's almost like what was that movie with Tom Cruise where they could predict the future?
Minority Report.
Yes, thank you, Manor. Remember he had those gloves and he was just kind of swiping, doing this. That's my vision of sales. My other vision of sales, the sales rep of the future is Iron Man. So if you think, and this is the analogy that I show reps, is like if you think, if you think of Iron Man, right? You got Tony Stark. And as a human, Tony Stark's got it all, right? He's rich, he's good looking, he's super smart, jerk, anyways, right? But if Tony went out as a human and tried to fight these aliens and all this shit, he'd get killed, right? So what does he have to do? He has to create this suit. Well, the suit's cool, but I don't know if you remember the first Iron Man. It's kind of clunky and it blew up in the desert and all that. It really didn't become Iron Man until he added Jarvis. So now you have the human, the suit, the tech, and AI, and you can go out there and whoop some ass. And so the future isn't, I don't think we're, I don't know if you've heard that. I've been saying this since I saw AI come out. I do not believe that we are going to get replaced by AI, at least not yet. But I know for a fact we're going to get replaced by sales reps who learn how to use AI.
Yeah.
That's the piece. And for consultants, owners, businesses, it is a force multiplier if you figure out how to use this right. Yeah. But the problem is you can't use it as an answer engine. You have to use it as a curiosity engine. You have to use it as right? Because we've gone from a search engine to an answer engine, and that's dangerous. Google, whatever we can all argue that Google fed us whatever it felt like feeding us, and it wasn't really our choice. It was just dictating. But at least it was a perception of choice where I could kind of go in and choose my source and be like, okay, yeah, let me read that and understand it. I don't know if I agree with it, whatever. Now you go into ChatGPT and you put on, it gives you the answer.
Mhm.
And that's scary because it's pulling off the internet. And you and I know the internet ain't always accurate, right? So for somebody like you and I think superpower because it's like, I don't know about that. Tell me a little bit more. Where'd you get that source? Could you give me the exact opposite perspective on this so I'm not missing anything? Ask me 10 questions that, so I should answer them so you can have a better perspective of what I'm trying to accomplish here, right? Holy shit, superpower, right?
Yeah.
Hey, ChatGPT, I got this thought. I want to write a blog post. It's kind of about this, and the big takeaway is going to be blah, 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 blah. Could you help me organize my thoughts on this and put it together? Oh, yep, John, here you go. Awesome. Now I'm going to take that and add my little flavor to it, make the adjustments, make sure it's me gone. But unfortunately, to the average person out there, they're just going to cut, paste.
Yeah.
And I don't understand the value of the human in that engagement.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I will tell you right now, I'm actually not as concerned with the sales tech AI taking over a sales rep's job from a sales standpoint. What I'm actually more concerned is when the buyers wake up. When the buyers wake up and realize that they can easily go into ChatGPT and have a much more valuable conversation about your solution than they would with you, that's when the trouble starts. Because and if anybody doesn't believe they're in trouble with AI, just do yourself a favor. Go into chat, pick your poison, whatever platform you use, and pretend like you're a potential customer or a potential prospect for your services. So I would go in and say, John Barrows, I'm Jeff Smith, the VP of sales of a sales company. I have 20 SDRs, I have 30 AEs. I'm looking for some prospecting training. The JB sales training is the one I'm taking a look at. Tell me the pros and cons of the JB sales training. What's it all about? And by the way, how does he compare against the other top three vendors on G2? And what were some of the negative reviews of his program so I can understand that a little bit? And and how does this align with my 12 to 24 month growth plan? And which one would be the better? And when you realize in a fucking 5 minute conversation with ChatGPT, you get better answers than some dipshit 22-year-old kid that's going to ask you bant questions and then make you wait another week to talk to an AE who's going to ask you the same questions and then wait another week to bring an SE in who's actually maybe going to be able to answer your questions. Like you realize that if you don't level up here, man, you're fucked.
Yeah. No, that is really good point. John, we've come to the point in the call where I give you a bit of a quick fire.
Okay.
Snog, marry, avoid.
All right.
Not the usual, but a snog is a quick win in business. When
Okay.
it comes to sales, from your perspective, what is a quick win that you would implement in your business today to make the greatest impact?
Oh, shit. A quick win in sales. Referrals. So I would profile, I would go back to ideal customer profile, getting super tight, find the clients I do the best work with, and I would go and ask them, hey, and then I would find a list of clients that fit that profile, and then I would approach every single one of my customers and say, hey, you know what? I thank you so much for your business. I'm trying to grow my business smart, not scale too fast so that I can continue to hire, do the high quality service. So you fit the best profile. Here's a bunch of other companies in this region that fit that profile. Do you happen to know any of them? And if you do, let me go back and do some homework about why I think we would be a good fit. And would you mind making that introduction for me? It's the referrals is a lost art. Nobody does it. I actually even sometimes ask for referrals on a cold call. So like say I cold called you, Matt, and we had a really good, thoughtful conversation, but ultimately at the end of it, you were like, you know what, John, I appreciate this, man, but we're just not in a position. I'd be like, all right, Matt, well, hey, just out of curiosity, like, maybe I'll touch base in the next 3 to 6 months or something like that. But in the meantime, do you happen to know anybody else that might be interested in my network for that? Why not ask the question? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So
No harm, no foul.
that's a
Eh?
quick and easy one.
Yeah. A marry is something that you couldn't live without in your business, John. What is that? What do you rely on the most, do you think?
Authenticity. But I would say ChatGPT at this point, quite frankly. I'm in there all day creating GPTs that is making me now so much more efficient than I've ever been in my life as far as posting and sharing and content and all that other stuff. I'm distilling information down to okay, that's like Notebook LM. Are you out of your mind? I took here's a quick side story. I took I was going on a face-to-face meeting with a client. I had already had like 3 conversations with them that I had prepped for and gotten all this intel for. I had recorded those calls I use Otter and a call recording software. I was running late to meet their CEO. So I stuffed everything into Notebook LM and it created a podcast for me with 2 people talking about it in real world. Like it sounded like 2 humans. I put it on my phone on my 30-minute drive down to the client. I listened to everything I needed to know, distilled down to exactly how I wanted to listen to it. I walked in the door, I shook the CEO's hand, and I blew his fucking mind with how much I knew about his business. So right now, I am begging everybody, if you don't think AI is if you're scared of it, stop being scared of it. Get into it, start creating your own. It's the easiest thing. People are like, I don't know where to start. That's a great thing to say to ChatGPT. Hey, I don't know where to start with this shit. I'm a CEO of a consulting firm. What are some ways that I can use? Here's some of the challenges that I have. Here's how can I use this tool to be better? And as long as, again, you look at it as a co-pilot, not an answer engine, not something that's just going to do your job for you. I don't like the agent feel here. I hate this fucking, it's all going to do the work in the background. Like, no, then human needs to be the last mile. So AI is right now is where because if I didn't have it, I would just scale way back and just try to just kind of pick my lane and do my thing. But if I want to grow, if I want to be more profitable, I got to figure out how to use this stuff because I'm eventually going to get replaced by somebody who knows how to use it.
Exactly right. Yeah, I love that. I love how AI just keeps coming up on this podcast as well, John.
Yeah,
The last one is avoid. What is something that you would advocate our listeners ditch right now that's not serving them in their business related to sales?
spray and pray. Anything that has to do with spray and pray, anything that has to do with generic messaging, anything that has to do with how great you are, leading provider of, shut up, any of that crap. Like nobody gives a shit. Be quality over quantity all day. And here's another, tactically, don't ever touch base and check in ever again in your lives. Those 2 most meaningless phrases in sales. It means there's no reason for your call. So therefore, there's no reason for me to talk to you. So here's a tip that I'll give to everybody because I used to do it all the time is all you got to do is start every single call or conversation with the reason for my call is. Because if you cannot finish that sentence, you shouldn't be making the phone call.
That's awesome. What a great way to finish. John, finally, where can people find you? You've mentioned, of course, your programs and how you help companies as well. How can people reach out to you?
Yeah, website's the easiest, right? jbarrows.com. And that's where you're going to find my YouTube channel that has a ton of free resources on it, my Instagram channel, which I share a bunch of stuff, my LinkedIn profile where I share a bunch of free shit. And if you happen to want to throw a few bucks at a program, my whole thing, everything I've taught to every client, Salesforce, LinkedIn, and all those is in my little membership. It's $420 a year. It gives you everything that I got and walks you through a step-by-step process to do everything that we just talked about today. So hit me up there. If you hit me up on LinkedIn, I apologize. I can't connect with you because unfortunately, I know this sounds like a humble brag, but I've hit the 30,000 limit on connections, so I can't accept anymore. But you can follow me, hit the bell, right, and make sure it's all, not just the regular one. And that's where you'll see a lot of my stuff in my feed. And you can still email me and all that fun stuff too.
I feel privileged that I snuck under the line and that we're first line connections on LinkedIn, John. Wonderful. Listen, thank you so much for joining us today on the Consultancy Edge.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Matt. I appreciate it.